So I'm Emma, and 25, and also from Denmark, and donor conceived, as all three of you as well. Katie, will you tell briefly about yourself?
I am Katie. I'm from England. I'm 25 too, and I'm egg donor conceived.
And I can go next. I'm Daniel. I'm 26. We are 26. We're twins, and we're donor conceived.
Yeah, so pretty much my presentation as well. My name is Anna, 26, surprise, donor conceived, surprise as well, and I'm the twin.
Katie, would you like to start off?
I am a late discovery. Oh no, how do you say it? I found out late in life when I was 23, and after I had my first child as well. That was a whirlwind. But my mum couldn't have children because she was older. So she had to be when she was 50 years old. So they needed to use an egg donor to have me after 8 years of trying themselves. And so they obviously went down the donor route, and here I am. And the reason they didn't tell me was just out of fear, but obviously everything is fine now.
Yeah, so I know that is quite different from both mine, but also your story, Anna and Daniel. Yeah. So can you explain a bit about your family situation and also how you knew that you were donor conceived?
Sure. So we were kind of never afforded the option to have it a secret because we're from a rainbow family. So we have two moms and have always had two moms. And somehow we needed to be able to explain that to someone who didn't understand it. So obviously there being no father in the situation kind of forced us to, from a very early age, become sort of ambassadors for being donor conceived. So that's just always been something we've known, and from a very early age, obviously with increasing complexity added to it, but we've always known and have had it explained to us from our parents.
Yeah, and also I would like to add that you said like kind of ambassadors, which is true, but for my part at least, I haven't talked that much about it in my childhood. Not that I didn't want to, I don't think it has been such a big thing, but it's funny how we're sitting here today and actually have become some sort of ambassadors, and we would like to tell our story so everyone would feel comfortable with their donor story.
I completely agree. And to just quickly share my experience with donor conception. I have both a mom and a dad, but they had trouble conceiving because of my dad's sperm quality. So they went through many, many years of fertility treatment, tried whatever was possible at that time, but eventually had to use a donor, and also almost didn't do that because they thought it wouldn't even happen in that way. And but my parents chose to be very open about it, even though they had the opportunity not to tell me, and that was also what you were advised back then. But luckily they chose to tell me from an early age, and I've always been very okay with it. And we've always just talked very openly about it in the family. So Katie, you're the only one who is who is told late.
Yeah.
So I have like a question, like, how did you learn that you were donor conceived? So you kind of touched upon it, but can you explain maybe a bit more?
I sort of found out on my own. I wasn't told. I think I got to an age, because I'd just had my own child. I was really curious about the success rates of IVF in older women, and obviously when I was just researching, it just seemed very unlikely that my mum was that lucky. And I did some more research, more and more, and then I plucked up the courage to ask. I was so scared to ask, because you don't want to upset your parents. But I'm glad I did, because obviously it all came out. And obviously at first it was really upsetting. It was a big shock. I'd never even thought about it my whole life. Even though I knew she was much older than everyone else's parent, I never thought once in my life anything like that. And then so yeah, it was a big shock, and I was hurt at first, and the whole thing was just mad. But obviously, we've talked a lot. Communication's really important, and I think my family understand the importance of being open and honest, and we're in a good place again. Like they're my best friends again. Good.
I think it's amazing that you have gone through that as a family and still managed to be that close. I think it's great. So what about you, Daniel and Anna? Do you remember when or how you learned that you were donor conceived? Obviously, it was from an early age. So
Obviously,
I don't remember a moment when like there was no big surprise or realization. We just were so eased into it that it kind of just gradually came up. And yes, so I'm not really sure. I remember knowing and having to explain it when encountering other kids. Like in elementary school, that was when the explanations from our side began appearing, because other kids were curious. Obviously, when I believe like in early elementary school, there are a lot of tasks about what is your mom doing and who is your dad, and the whole family tree situation. And obviously, as soon as that happened, where there was a slot for mom and one for dad, and we had to explain, no, there will be 2 female names from us, then the entire thing began rolling uphill. And
yeah, I remember that too, like having to tell friends from school and explain the situation. Obviously, some of them knew because they went to our house and they were like, "Oh, 2 moms, cool, blah blah blah." But then they were asking more deeply into it, and I remember actually having to ask our one mom, the biological one, so how does it even work? What is how did it work out, or and stuff like that? Because I was curious, because others were curious. So that was actually why I needed to learn more, to explain more. Also, I remember not explaining right. I remember that it's kind of funny, but in Danish, sperm is pretty close to the word note. So I remember telling a girl that we used a stranger's sperm to conceive, to become so that our mom could conceive, and the friend misunderstood. She was like, "Oh, the note, was there a note, something right? Someone writing a note about becoming parents and stuff like that?" And I was like, "No, did I say note? I don't know." I was confused. I didn't even know how to tell the story. It was confusing for a kid at that age.
Yeah, I know because I felt the same. I also had to explain a lot more for my own sake, I think, than others, because they couldn't really see it. But I always was very honest and told people. I'm not really sure why I felt the need to tell, but somehow I did. And yeah, there is a lot of explaining to do whenever you tell someone that you're donor conceived or egg donor, sperm or egg donor conceived. So I was curious, Katie, you wouldn't know this because you were told late, but one of the things I'm asked a lot is how the other children would react. So have you had any experiences with other children reacting to your donor conception?
So for me, at least, I think the reaction I got is more towards having two moms.
Mm-hmm.
So not that much being donor conceived, but obviously that's a part of it. So when telling, I do not have a dad, I have two moms, then, who are your dad? And I'm like, I just said, I don't have a dad. And they would ask again, like, did you ever meet him, blah, blah, blah. And then I would tell the story, I'm donor conceived, so I do not have a dad. I have never seen him. He's anonymous. And then the questions like, would you like to see him, stuff like that. And no, not really.
Another question I've had sometimes is, who's your main mom then? Which is also related to having two moms, but also because one of them is the biological mom, and the assumption then is that is the main mom, whatever that means. And always explain that our moms are like equal to us, equally mom. Although we do know who is obviously the biological mom, it doesn't matter. Just the other day, Anna told that our non-biological mom had warned her that she should have something checked in our medical history, because her mom has shingles, and she should check if it runs in the family before stopping herself, because we're not genetically related, so it's not something that runs in the family for us.
And we have had that happen multiple times. Yeah. Our non-biological mom calling us, telling us, hey, I know this is happening, maybe you should check yourself something. And we're like, do you think that, Mom? Really? Do you think that?
I also remember one time as late as in high school that a girl reacted. That was mostly because we were doing a game where a stranger, it was the first day of class, had to introduce their partner. And I would open with my family history because it's quite interesting. And then the girl next to me had to explain it to the class. And once she explained that we had two moms, another girl in the class stood up and said, you cannot just say that about people. And I was like, no, it's absolutely true. I don't see what the problem is. And she didn't have a problem. She just thought it was rude to lie about people because she had never encountered a rainbow family like ours before.
Yeah, I've had that experiences as well, where people don't really believe the story because it is just not something that you hear a lot about. So when people tell it very casually, I think people tend to think that it is weird in some way.
How about you, Katie? Have you had any experiences like that later in life where?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with two brothers, but we don't actually share any genetic link, and I had to tell them as well, and they were shocked. Nobody knew. No one in my family knew other than my mum and dad. So I had to tell my own family that I'm donor conceived. It's crazy. So they were shocked. But people say though that me and my mum are like, we are so similar, like the same person, the same personality. I'm more like my mum actually than my dad, and my dad's my biological parent. So it's it's cool though. But yeah, I've had to tell people, and people are like, oh my god.
Yeah. So what do you think, like, is there a best or a worst part of donor conception?
I could just jump in and say that the best part for me is that we know that we have been so wanted, and obviously our moms couldn't have done it with, or maybe with some other methods, but this was a pretty good one. I feel like I feel really lucky that we have this sort of family, and this was an option at the time. Alternatively, they might not have had kids. So yeah, I think the best part is feeling blessed with this sort of family and this method.
Yeah, I feel the same.
Yeah, I feel completely the same as well.
Yeah, you know, like I think it's so good that my parents even had the chance to have a child together, because they're like the best parents, and I couldn't imagine not having like my mum and dad as my mum and dad. You know, they were meant for me, and I was meant for them, I think.
I feel completely the same, and I think that also goes for all of us, I guess, that we know that we were very, very wanted children, and that without the help from the fertility industry or the fertility technologies today, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Not really, just the same feeling that we know. You know, some people say that there were accidents or surprises and no such thing. Although for us, I believe our mom told us it did take 3 attempts before we arrived. She got one for free then by us being twins, but still she had a miscarriage, and then one time it didn't take, and then the third attempt she got us.
I was the third as well, the third attempt.
I don't really know what attempt I was. It was 6 years down the road. I think they stopped counting.
Oh, bless them.
I remember also because I don't know at the time, but obviously there was money involved because it's not free to get the treatment, and at a certain time I'm not sure if some of it is subsidized in Denmark, but at some point it comes out of pocket, and I believe that it was the case for our moms. Well, they had to pay. Yeah, at some point.
They had to pay, but actually they had to pay because there were 2 women. That was the rules back then.
We're still learning about our history because it's so natural for us that it's always been this way, that we still have questions for our moms, like how exactly was it back then?
Yeah.
And also in this field, like the legislation changed so much. So even though things have been in a certain way while we've been growing up and understanding, it might have been very different from when we were conceived. So it's hard to understand the full history of it.
Yeah,
so
sorry, I just wanted to add that for example in Denmark by now you have this thing called a co-mom. So when 2 women want to have kids, there would be like the biological mom and then the co-mom. And for example, in our history, that was not a part of it. So we have the biological mom, and the non-biological mom was not considered a parent. So just to add that things are changing. Today it's looking better.
And it actually meant for, in our childhood for a long time, our biological mom was listed as being, you know, as a single mother, which meant she got support from the state that she didn't need.
And didn't want.
They tried to send it back, but because our mom wasn't, our other mom wasn't in the papers, it was simply wasn't possible at the time to have a CPR number that was female in the system as the second mom. That has since been changed, as Anna says. Now co-moms are a thing, not retroactively. So last year, our mom had to adopt us. So to finally get it in the papers. And that just happened last year because again, this hasn't been such a huge deal in our life that we've been considering it for a long time. So it's really just because she reached a certain age and kept thinking it would ease things for the future if we were in the papers as official children.
Yeah.
So we are now officially her children as well.
Yeah, but to be honest, I didn't want that title in the beginning because we could only have her as stepmom, and I think that isn't the right title for her. She's a co-mom or just mom. So that might also be a reason why it took so long for her to adopt us, because I didn't want
It
that.
doesn't feel right because she's not a stepmother, she's our mother. And unfortunately, that's just something that's lost in kind of regulatory history for us. But it is a thing for newer moms.
So would you say that donor conception has had a big impact on your life? Obviously, family situation have, but would you say donor conception has?
Only when I first found out, but now, not really. No, it doesn't really impact my life. Only obviously when the subject's brought up, like this, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, for us, it's the same thing. It's very much interlinked with the rainbow family thing. We haven't really had, as far as I know, any medical history problems or anything like that, so it hasn't come up. I could imagine in the future at some point, maybe. And at that point, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But it's really, because we have an anonymous donor, we obviously have a shadow history, just genetics wise, but trust that everything is worked out.
And oh, sorry, you can go.
No, I've felt that too, because I think we all have anonymous donors. Actually, I think that was the only choice back then. But I found out that I was lactose intolerant because of a genetic predisposition. So obviously that plays a part in my life, but it's not something that I worry a lot about or think a lot about. And as you say, it might be different whenever you want to have kids or build your own family, but we'll cross that bridge whenever we're there. Katie, you obviously already have children, so has it had a big impact on that, or is it something that you thought a lot about?
No, not yet, not like medically, but to be honest, I'm not that worried anyway, because there's so many advancements in science, isn't there? You know, that I'm not too worried about the future. But no, so far haven't needed to know anything in particular. It's more, anything I've wanted to know has been just out of curiosity, that's all.
If I could add something, it was I was just thinking the way being a donor conceived has taught us something, maybe, is what family is to us. So we've always been raised with kind of under the banner that family is something you choose, because we have had to choose our family. Obviously, our second mom raised us, but we've always known that she wasn't our biological mom and what that meant to us. Which meant that there was a whole part of our family that we also had to actively choose.
Yeah.
And for the same, that also goes for her. I won't completely speak on her behalf, but our moms divorced when we were young, and that I could imagine that she felt very unsafe at a point with young children she wasn't genetically tied to. Fortunately, they were very good friends and solved that, and we've always felt as much as her children as our biological mom. But that did play into it, you know, the we choose to be her children just as she chooses to be our mother.
I can completely relate to that. I think in some way it has brought our family closer, that we know that we're not only there because we're genetically linked to each other, we're there because we have chosen to be a family. And I think that makes the bond even stronger. So obviously we all have anonymous donors. So I wanted to ask you all how you feel about that, and if you would want to change that if you could?
A hard one, isn't it?
I don't even know what I would say. So yeah, I'm just throwing it out there.
I mean, there's obviously, for me, I'm like a naturally curious person anyway. So I wish I knew more. I don't know if I'd want a relationship, but I do wish I had like a name just to like humanize it a little bit, you know, so that it was like actually a nice person. But then also, you know, because you don't know who they are, what they're like, you know, you might not get along, or really difficult question. It's really hard to answer. But I think if I knew that it was a really lovely person, I probably would want to know who it is.
Well, to be completely honest, I think that I know my answer, that I like it this way, and I would prefer it this way, him being anonymous, because for me, this is a donor and not a dad, so I'm not missing out of anything, and I like not having to choose which part he should play in our lives, or my life. But as you said, Katie, I do think that, wow, what if he's just this really nice guy? Then maybe I would like to know. But like, no, I think, man.
Fear of missing out on something great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so obviously we've lived with the condition that we would never be able to know. Lately, there have been some stories about some donor fathers going out there trying to look for some children, I believe I've read. And it did bring up the interesting question, because I feel very much the same with Anna, that I'm not actively looking, even understanding that I can't. I'm also choosing not to, if you can understand the thought process behind that. But if for example it was the other way around, that does pose an interesting question. If he was looking for us, whether I would reach out. And that I don't know either. I could imagine maybe if it was the case. I know Anna has been looking around at some point for step siblings, brothers and sisters as well, but I've never really been interested in that either. So,
but to add on, I've never looked for me or you. I've only looked if anyone would type anything like searching for us. So I've never posted anything. I just look like once a year or every second year to just like look, okay, is someone missing out on us?
Yeah.
We're not really reaching out, but we are receiving if someone is. And also I want to say, although we consider our biological father just a donor, we are very grateful for the donation, and that there are people out there who are donors, so that we may exist to us in the perhaps less than regular families.
Yeah, it is so comforting to me to hear your story, because it is so similar to mine, even though our family constellation is so different. I think our stories are just very much alike, and also how we feel is very much alike. I also completely feel like I don't need him in my life, and I wouldn't change that he's anonymous. I also feel like it's a door that has been closed, which has made me not second guess it throughout all my life. And I think that has been a relief, because I think that can trigger some very hard questions, especially going through the teenage years. Obviously, I don't know if he were to reach out, how I would feel. You never know. And in terms of half siblings, I haven't looked, and I don't know my donor number, so I can't even. Even if other people were looking for half siblings, I wouldn't know that was me. I don't know. Have you looked for half siblings, Katie, or how do you feel about that?
I think I'm more interested in knowing any half siblings, but then I although I've said that I had two sort of brothers, they're like 25 years older than me. They're my mum's children from when she was younger. So for me, I have grown up like a single child, and I think that's why, to me, it would be interesting to know if there was someone my age out there related to me. So I am on like the DNA site, but also I'm actually comfortable in my life that I'm not upset if I can't find them, you know. I'm not going to get upset
because
about it.
That is the big difference, I think. If you're okay with the situation, you're at peace with yourself, or if you're unhappy and out there very actively looking for people that you feel like you're missing in your life. And I think it's really
sorry.
no, what you said.
Saying sometimes in the debate, I think that we as donor children are being conflated with adoption, for example, where I think that there's an entirely different emotional process when you're adopted, maybe. Also, if you know and if you don't know, and obviously someone carried you to term and gave birth to you, and you want to know what kind of situation that would lead someone to
Give
leave
up
children for someone else. But this is just not our situation, and a donor is not the same thing as a parent who gives someone up for adoption. So whenever I see us being conflated in public debate with that, when someone who has been adopted tries to argue that parents should always be known, I get a little bit, miffed over the debate, because there are many of us out there who don't agree and who don't consider us in that way adopted, so we don't have the same emotions there. And sometimes I feel like our silent voices aren't being heard because we are so content as we are.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there are some donor conceived people who are obviously unhappy and has been hurt in life by the fact that they're donor conceived, and they speak very loudly. And then, we all feel like kind of the same about it. And it doesn't really, what I get from this at least is like, it doesn't really play that big deal in everyday life. So it isn't something that you go out and talk a lot about, especially not in like a political sense, because it's just been a part of your life. So I think that the ones that are hurting, they tend to take up a lot of the space, even though that might not be the actual case for all donor conceived people. That might be how it appears. And I think that's a shame, actually, and I hope that video like this can be a part of a more like nuanced picture of this donor conception. So why do you guys think that it varies so much how donor conceived people feel?
Good question. I think it depends a lot, because it depends on the family and how the parents have handled it. So I believe that if you're really open about it with your kids, then there might be a better chance for them having a good story and feeling good about it. But I think that reading and searching the internet and so on, I've seen that most of the negative stories, I think, would be stories where the child finds out late, or maybe feeling betrayed at some point. And for my part at least, and I think for your part at least, we don't feel betrayed at all. We feel like this has been a gift for us.
Yeah, same for me, and that's why I feel like your story, Katie, is amazing, because you've managed to overcome that feeling and be okay with it, even though you found out late in life, and even though it was yourself that you needed to confront your parents.
I know. But I think, like, obviously the talking has been the biggest thing, and they were only scared, and I feel blessed. Like, I put myself in their shoes, and it is scary, especially back then. It's not like today, you know. And I can understand where they were coming from, and I listened. And obviously they feel bad, and they feel guilty for not telling me now, but that I can't ask for more, can I? And they're there for me. They said that they're going to support me, you know, whatever I'd like to do. And I think just them being supportive, and they said to me also that I can tell them anything, even if it upsets them. You know, because I had to get some things out, because I was upset, and I did have to say things that maybe they didn't want to hear, but I think we've moved past that now, and things are really good. You can fix it. It's not, you know.
Can I ask you something, Katie?
Yeah.
I was wondering if you being upset ever manifested then in that quest for your unknown heritage, you know?
I think it did. At first I was like, oh, I need to do a DNA test and I need to get myself out there, you know. But I think now I'm actually out there. I'm like, oh, it's all right, you know. I'm okay. I'm open to learning, but I'm also okay if I never find anything else out, because I have a great family, and you know, I don't need anything else.
I think it's so inspiring, Katie, and I think you handle it so well. And yeah, I really appreciate you telling your story.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's so great. And I think, to me, it sounds, whenever I hear your stories, and also from my own story, I feel like a strong relationship and love is just the key to making it work. And if you're honest, if you can talk about things, and if you love each other, then you can go through almost everything, I guess.
Yeah, I just think, like, my parents made a mistake, and and my parents wanted a child. That's all they wanted, and they didn't know what was right and wrong. They didn't have the right support. I think any new parent should try and have some sort of support network, and they didn't have that, and they made a mistake, but it's okay, because they did it. They thought they were doing it out of love. Do you know what I mean? They thought they were doing their best.
Yeah.
I can't be angry at my parents for only trying their best. They never wanted to hurt me, you know. Why would they? I think they thought they were protecting me. So how can I be upset with my parents for just loving me, you know? That's how I see it.
And it is easy to make mistakes when you're pioneering something like that.
Yeah.
There were a lot of us at that time, so getting advice about being honest, I imagine was scarce, if not impossible, to hear from others who had children who were grown up with it being known by everyone. So
yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? Because this is not a field where you can like look how things develop throughout a week. It is like, now we're all like 25, 26. It takes a lot of time for children to grow up and to know how they feel throughout life. So it isn't like something that you can learn about quickly. So yeah, it's been a slow process, but what I see is that it's moving towards a better direction and more openness, and better education for the parents and support systems. And I really, really hope it becomes easier to be a parent who needs to go through this process, because I think it's been a very, very lonely road to go down. And I think it's been very difficult to know what was right and what was wrong. At least when I speak to my parents, they feel extremely lucky about the choices they made. And I think they had no clue. They just did what they thought would be the best. And now they just feel lucky that they did how they did, because they had no idea what was the best way to go about it. So do you have like any advice for recipient parents?
Yeah, just tell them from the start. Because as much as my relationship is fine now, obviously it was really hard to find out late, and also I also grieved that loss of connection, you know, like the mum that I've always known to be my mum and nothing else. Was hard to find out that I'd lost that certain link. Obviously now I know love so much more than that. But I did have to go through that process of losing something. But obviously now I've gained something as well, because I've gained, like you say, Emma, the knowledge that love conquers in all, so that it doesn't actually matter at all. And looking back now, nothing's changed. My relationship with her hasn't changed. It's probably stronger now because we've gone through that together. So but yeah, I would advise to be honest and open from a very early age to avoid that.
Yeah,
I would also say from us the honesty aspect, because I think what we know is that children can handle the truth from pretty much when they can talk, like when they can begin to understand things, because that's as soon as we had to be able to understand why we were different, because our family was visibly different from everyone else. So there wasn't a concern like, should we tell them when they were 5 or when they were 6 or anything. It was just always a part of the conversation, and then you can add complexity later. But the essence must be there, and the essence must be the truth, that there is something there, the biology aspect, or that there is a donor somewhere. And we always knew of the concept of a donor, even when we didn't understand what it meant, biologically or physically, that we knew that we had help coming into existence from when we were very young.
Yeah, I agree totally with your advice and yours, Katie. And also I would like to highlight that for the parent not being biological, I think it's important to say, don't feel less of a parent, because the parent isn't a parent because of the
because of their genetics or their biology.
That was where, exactly. Being a good parent is about being a good parent. So
yeah, I would also say the same. It is a question that I've had a lot of times, when to start telling the child. And I think both for the child, I think people underestimate children so much. They understand a lot more than we give them credit for. And especially when it's something important, like you understanding that you had 2 moms, and for me understanding that we've had help from another man, for me to become a possibility. I just think that people, they tend to want to wait until the child understands everything, and I think that is a mistake, because if you're looking for the right time, it won't appear. So you have to sit down and start talking. And also I think for the parents, they need some practice in telling this story, because it isn't an easy story to tell, because there are also some complex feelings for the parents. So I think them getting the practice in telling this story over and over again before the child asks difficult questions is so good. And then
That's a good point on it. With like, start telling your children early, because you will become better at explaining it yourself. And also, children are not damaged. Like, we forget things all the time. It's not about, and also for parents, it's not about telling them when they're 3 years old and then never speaking to it again. It needs to be a conversation that always happens from when they're born, and you need to, as I said, add complexity to it as children grow up. Keep adding to the explanation and start from a young age, because if you're looking for the opportune moment, it will always be 1 year in the future, and then suddenly it'll be too late.
Yeah, and also like, oh, sorry.
No, carry on.
I just want to add that when telling the story, your emotion as a parent will affect your children. So being open and happy and telling like this was the best thing ever happen to us. We're so lucky. That feeling and emotion will impact your child. But saying like, oh, we didn't know how to tell you, and yeah, you do not have a dad, or we got the help, but we wanted something else. That will also affect your child. So being open and happy, I think that would be really good advice.
Acting like it's a dark secret makes it a dark secret.
Exactly.
So you don't have to do that.
Yeah, I'd like to add, because obviously speaking to my parents, they were waiting for the right time to tell me one day, and it just never happened. It just getting pushed back and back and back, because there is really no right time. So I think like it's so true, if you can, you know, just make it a part of their life, it's natural, it's normal, because it is, you know. And I think donor conception will only become more popular now in the future. So yeah, that's why I think I found out so late, because it just got harder and harder. So
it must have been really hard for your parents carrying around that secret for so many years, though. Must have been.
And I think what's really important to advise as well is obviously I think a major impact of not being told was their fears and them being scared. So I think that if you're starting out on this journey, I think it's really good to face these fears early. And like you say, like Daniel was saying, that the more you talk about it from a young age, the easier it is for you as a parent. I think that's so important to overcome your fears, because otherwise it's gonna, it may go on to your child as a fear, and they may feel, like it was, I don't know, like you say, a dark secret or something like that. And it is normal. So we must just act like it's normal from day one. Yeah.
Oh, I think it's been an absolute pleasure. Do you have anything you want to add, something you want to tell or comment on before we call it a night?
I think it would be good for parents to get support, even if it's from friends or family, like just talking about it from the very start, being open with your own family. And there's loads of really great support groups out there as well. If you want to speak to other people that have been through the same, I think you should look out for those people. And like Emma's page is really great. And like you've got Defining Mum as well, Becky, she's got a really great support group. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's good. I think it's also good to talk to people who are going through the same emotions that you are. I think that was also something that wasn't there for our parents at that time. I don't know if your mothers had anything like that. No,
not at least as far as I know. I don't think they have that had that. No, so I think it's really great that parents having the opportunity now to research, reach out, having support groups and stuff. And I think it's important both to reach out to the support groups with other parents, but maybe also like looking at Emma's page or reaching out to us or something like that, like reaching out to children who have grown up with this and also have a positive story as well.
Yeah, I really want to get more donor conceived people's voices out there, because I think it's so important, and I think that the parents can learn so much from the life that we've lived and what we have done in our families, and see that as an inspiration, not always just being told what not to do, because then you can get like really frightened that you might do everything wrong. So try to inspire instead of frightening people. That is my approach, and I'll try to get the word out there. I do my part, at least. And thank you so much for participating today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm sure that people can see this and learn a lot from it, and hopefully other donors, conceived people, can also relate. And just thank you so much for taking the time to do this.